My wife giggled as her friends joked about how some secrets were better left undiscovered. Then my son took me aside, showed me a single message on her phone, and within an hour her entire life was in ruins. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. But that's what everyone says after their world falls apart, right? The truth is, I was blind because I wanted to be. Sarah and I had been together for 14 years, married for 12. We had built what I thought was a solid life together, a beautiful home in the suburbs. Good jobs, Jake, our 16-year-old son, who was smart as a whip and now supposedly a second child on the way. The baby shower was her idea. Sarah had always loved being the center of attention, and pregnancy gave her the perfect excuse to throw a massive party. 70 guests filled our house that Saturday afternoon in early September. The weather was perfect, warm but not too hot, and she had decorated everything in soft yellows and whites since we were supposedly keeping the gender a surprise. I say supposedly because I had my doubts about a lot of things by that point. Sarah looked radiant that day. I'll give her that. She wore this flowing cream color maternity dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her dark hair was styled in loose waves, and she had that pregnancy glow everyone always talks about. She moved through the crowd like a celebrity, accepting hugs and gifts and compliments with practiced grace. I watched her from across the room, standing near the kitchen with a beer in my hand that I wasn't really drinking. My brother Mike stood next to me, rambling about something related to his fantasy football league, but I wasn't listening. I was watching Sarah's friends, Emma, Kate, and Lisa. The trio had been inseparable since college. They met every Thursday for wine and gossip, went on annual girls' trips to tropical destinations, and treated their friendship like some kind of exclusive club. I had never particularly liked them. There was something artificial about the way they interacted, all surface-level compliments and fake laughter. But they made Sarah happy, or so I thought. That afternoon, they were huddled near the bay window, wine glasses in hand, despite it only being 3 in the afternoon. They kept glancing at Sarah, then at me, then back to each other before dissolving into giggles. It was the kind of laughter that made my skin crawl, the kind that meant someone was the butt of a joke they didn't know about. Lisa, the loudest of the 3, raised her glass in Sarah's direction. I couldn't hear everything she said, but I caught the end of it clearly. Some secrets are better left undiscovered. Right, Sarah. More laughter. Sarah glanced my way, caught me watching, and gave me that brilliant smile I had fallen in love with 15 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. The smile that used to make my heart skip, now it just made me feel cold. That's when I noticed the watch. Sarah never wore watches. It was one of those quirks I had learned early in our relationship. She said anything on her wrists made her feel trapped, restricted. I had bought her a nice smartwatch for her birthday 3 years ago, thinking it would help her track her runs and stay connected. She thanked me, kissed me, and then left it in the dresser drawer where it stayed until the battery died, and I eventually threw it away. But there it was, a chunky men's watch with a leather band sitting prominently on her left wrist. It was expensive looking, the kind of understated luxury that whispered money rather than screaming it. Every time she gestured, every time she reached for her water glass or touched someone's arm, the watch caught the light. I felt my jaw tight. Mike was still talking beside me. Something about a quarterback controversy, but my focus had narrowed to that watch. When had she started wearing it? Why had I not noticed before? And why, if her friends had supposedly given it to her like she would inevitably claim, did it look like something designed for a man's wrist? Before I could process this further, Jake appeared at my elbow. My son had grown 4 in the past year and now stood almost as tall as me. He had my build, lanky and angular, but Sarah's dark eyes. Those eyes looked troubled now. Dad, he said quietly, can we talk outside? I sat down my beer. Everything okay? He glanced around the crowded room. Just come with me, please. We stepped out onto the back deck. The September air was cooler out here, carrying the smell of someone's barbecue from a few houses down. Jake's hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone. I wasn't trying to spy, he started, his words coming fast and defensive. I was setting up Mom's new iPad for her because she said she couldn't figure it out. And when I logged in with her Apple ID, these messages started popping up. I think it's syncing with her phone. He held the screen toward me. My vision tunneled as I read the preview notification. Tomorrow changes everything. Our son will finally be with just us. No more hiding. I love you. The sender was listed as a series of heart emojis. Not a name, not a contact I would recognize, just hearts. My mouth went dry. When did this come through? Like 10 minutes ago. Jake's voice cracked slightly. He was trying to sound calm, trying to be mature about whatever this was, but I could see the fear in his eyes, the confusion. Dad, what does this mean? Our son? Is Mom? Is she talking about the baby? I stared at the message, reading it again and again. Our son will finally be with just us. The phrasing was intimate, conspiratorial. And that word us, not we, not our family, us, Sarah, and someone anyone else. "Let me see the iPad," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Jake hesitated. "I already closed the message." I didn't read the rest. "I just saw that one pop up and I thought you should know." Smart kid. Even in his panic, he had the sense not to dig deeper without me. I pulled him into a brief hug. "You did the right thing. Go back inside. Act normal. I'll handle this." He nodded, relief flooding his face at being released from this terrible knowledge, and slipped back through the sliding door. Through the glass, I could see Sarah laughing at something someone said, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other holding a glass of sparkling cider. She looked so happy, so innocent, but I wasn't shocked. That was the strange part. Standing there on that deck, staring at the message Jake had shown me, I felt a horrible sense of confirmation settle over me like a weight, because this wasn't the first sign. It was just the first one I couldn't ignore. 3 weeks earlier, I had found the receipt. I hadn't been looking for anything suspicious. I was just taking out the trash on a Tuesday morning, my mind on autopilot, when I noticed a piece of thick paper wedged between junk mail and an empty protein bar wrapper in the recycling bin. Sarah was meticulous about going paperless. Everything was digital, emailed, stored in the cloud. Physical receipts were rare in our house. This one was from a medical clinic I didn't recognize. A wire transfer confirmation for $15,000. The description just said genetic analysis services. No patient name. Just Sarah's bank account information and a transaction ID. $15,000 for genetic analysis. While supposedly pregnant with my child, I stood there in the garage holding that receipt, feeling the first crack form in the foundation of my marriage. Because there was only one reason a pregnant woman would secretly wire 15 grand to a genetics lab. She was checking paternity. I took a picture of the receipt with my phone. Then I did what any husband in my position would do. I started digging. The first thing I checked was our shared calendar. Sarah was religious about keeping it updated, color-coding everything. Her appointments were in pink, mine in blue, Jake's in green, and shared family events in purple. I scrolled back through the past 6 months, looking for anything medical that seemed off there. Mid-March, a notation that just said relaxation therapy appointment at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. The address, when I looked it up, matched the clinic from the receipt. Relaxation therapy, right? I checked her location history next. Sarah had an app on her phone that tracked her runs and walks, syncing the data to her fitness watch. She had started using it religiously about 8 months ago, part of some wellness kick that had included yoga classes and meditation podcasts. What she didn't realize was that because she used my email for our family plan subscription, I could access her account. I logged in and started scrolling through her activity. Most of it was normal. Morning runs through the neighborhood, walks around the park near her office during lunch breaks, evening strolls that matched up with times I knew she was out. But then I found the anomalies. Every 2 or 3 weeks, there would be a late-night walk, always starting between midnight and 1 in the morning, always following the same route through Riverside Park, which was a 20-minute drive from our house. The walks would last about an hour with a 40-minute stationary period right in the middle, always at the same bench near the center of the park, and then she would leave, not back the way she came, but out the far exit onto Maple Street. The GPS trail would end at a house 3 blocks away. I looked up the address. Public records showed it belonged to a David Chen, age 38, employed at the same tech company where Sarah worked. I didn't recognize the name, but that meant nothing. Sarah worked with hundreds of people. Still, I screenshotted everything. The routes, the timing, the address, all of it went into a private folder on my phone that I password protected. The next piece fell into place almost by accident. Sarah had mentioned needing to update her phone, something about storage being full. I offered to help, suggesting we back everything up to our cloud account and clear out old photos. She agreed easily, distracted by a work email, and handed me her phone. I went through the motions of backing up her data, but while the progress bar slowly filled, I navigated to her recently deleted photos folder. That's when I found the beach pictures. There were maybe 20 of them, all taken on the same day based on the timestamps. Sarah stood on a pristine white sand beach, turquoise water behind her, wearing a sundress I had never seen before, but it was her stomach that made my blood run cold. She was clearly pregnant, not early pregnancy either. She looked about 5 or 6 months along. In March, according to the timeline Sarah had given me, she got pregnant in early June. She told me she was pregnant in late July, claiming she was about 8 weeks along and wanted to wait until the second trimester to announce it. The math had seemed fine at the time. I had no reason to question it, but these photos showed her visibly pregnant 3 months before she supposedly conceived. I kept scrolling. In some of the pictures, there was a man. He was partially turned away from the camera, never showing his full face, but he was there. White button-down shirt, expensive-looking sunglasses, and on his pocket, a small embroidered logo. I recognized Sarah's company logo. The geotag on the photos showed they were taken in the Bahamas. I pulled up Sarah's work calendar from March. Sure enough, she had been on a supposed business trip that week. A conference for senior staff, she had said, too boring to bother me with the details. She had barely even texted me while she was gone, claiming the Wi-Fi was terrible and she was swamped with meetings. I saved every single photo to my secure folder and cleared her deleted items just like she had asked. Then I handed back her phone with a smile. All set, I told her. Should run a lot faster now. She kissed my cheek, thanked me, and went back to her laptop without a second thought. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to her breathe, and realized I was sleeping next to a stranger. This woman who I had shared my life with, who I had trusted completely, had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. The question was how deep the lies went. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I never thought I would be. I installed a monitoring app on the family iPad that synced with Sarah's phone messages. I checked her location obsessively. I went through our credit card statements line by line, looking for charges that didn't make sense. I even drove past David Chen's house late one night, sitting in my car down the street like some kind of stalker, watching to see if Sarah's car appeared. It did, 2:15 in the morning on a Thursday. She had told me she was going to a late yoga class, that she couldn't sleep and needed to stretch. I watched her park in his driveway, watched her walk up to his door, watched the porch light turn off after she went inside. I sat there for 3 hours. She didn't come out until 4:45 in the morning, slipping into her car and driving away. She arrived home at 5:10, slipping quietly into bed beside me, smelling like unfamiliar soap. I pretended to be asleep, but the evidence that broke me, the piece that turned suspicion into certainty, came from her own voice. Sarah's car was a newer model equipped with all kinds of smart features, including a voice assistant. The system was connected to our home network, syncing calls and messages for hands-free operation. What Sarah didn't know, what she had never bothered to learn, was that I had set up our entire smart home system myself. Every connected device, every audio input, every sync point ran through a private server in our basement, including her car. It was a Saturday morning. Sarah had a prenatal yoga class, or so she said. She took her car, kissing me goodbye and promising to pick up groceries on the way home. Jake needed a ride to his friend's house an hour later, and his car was in the shop for an oil change. The easier option was to take Sarah's car, since I had to drive right past his friend's neighborhood anyway. Jake and I climbed in. I adjusted the seat, started the engine, and that's when it happened. The voice assistant chimed. "You have one saved voice memo. Would you like to play it?" I froze. Jake looked up from his phone. "What's that?" Before I could answer, Sarah's voice filled the car clear as day. "We have to keep this a secret until after the birth. Just a little longer and everything will work out." My hands gripped the steering wheel. Jake's eyes went wide. Then a male voice responded, muffled but audible, "It's risky. If he finds out now, everything falls apart." Sarah again, calm and reassuring. "He won't suspect a thing. He never has before. We just need to be patient." The recording cut off. Silence filled the car like a living thing. Jake stared at me. "Dad, what was that?" I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. My vision was narrowing. "He never has before." Like this was a pattern, like I had been blind for years. "Dad," Jake's voice cracked with worry. I forced myself to breathe, to think, to act. "Save audio to home server," I said clearly. The car's assistant chimed. "Audio save." I pulled out my phone, opened the app that controlled our home network, and downloaded the file. Then I looked at Jake. "Not a word of this to your mother. Understand?" He nodded, his face pale. "Is Mom cheating on you?" I wanted to lie to protect him, but he deserved the truth, or at least part of it. "I don't know yet," I said, "but I'm going to find out." That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I had been building my case. Screenshot by screenshot, recording by recording, receipt by receipt. I documented everything, and I planned, because if Sarah thought she could just walk away from this marriage, take my son, take a baby that might not even be mine, and ride off into the sunset with her lover, she was dead wrong. If she wanted to burn down our life, I was going to make damn sure she burned with it. Which brings us back to the baby shower. Standing on that deck, staring at the message Jake had shown me, I felt a strange sense of calm. The final piece had clicked into place. Tomorrow everything changes. She was planning to leave. Maybe not tomorrow literally, but soon. She had a timeline. Her and David had a plan. They just didn't know I had a better one. I went back inside. The party was in full swing. Sarah was opening gifts, cooing over tiny onesies and stuffed animals while her mother took pictures and her friends sipped wine and made jokes. I moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, playing the role of excited father-to-be. All the while, my phone was in my pocket, the screen awake, my thumb hovering over an app I had installed specifically for this moment. The baby shower slideshow had been playing on loop for the past hour. Photos of Sarah and me throughout our relationship relationship, our wedding day, vacations, Jake as a baby, recent ultrasound images, all set to some soft acoustic music that Sarah had personally selected. The projector cast the images on the large white wall of our living room, 6 feet tall and impossible to miss. What the guests didn't know was that I had created a second version of that slideshow, one that Sarah definitely hadn't approved. I caught Jake's eye from across the room. He was standing near the projector, exactly where I had told him to be. I gave him the slightest nod. He nodded back and moved to the side, making room. I tapped my phone screen. The Bluetooth connection hijacked the projector in an instant. I had tested this a dozen times over the past week, making sure it would work flawlessly, and it did. The soft music cut off. The vacation photo disappeared, and in its place, blown up to 6 feet tall on our living room wall, was the text message: "Tomorrow changes everything. Our son will finally be with just us. No more hiding. I love you." The reaction was instant. Conversations died mid-sentence. People turned to look. Someone gasped. Sarah's champagne flute stopped halfway to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. The color drained from her face. "What is this?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, the next image appeared. The beach photo. Sarah, visibly pregnant, standing in the Bahamas in March. The timestamp was clearly visible in the corner. March 18th, 2024. "Wait," Emma said slowly, confusion in her voice. Wasn't Sarah only like 2 months pregnant in March? The murmurs started. People whispering, pointing, doing math in their heads. Next image. A close-up of the man in the background. His face was partially visible now thanks to some photo enhancement I had done. Enough to see his features, enough to recognize him. That's David. Someone said a woman I didn't know, probably one of Sarah's co-worker. That's David Chen from product development. Sarah stood up, her hands shaking. "This isn't what it looks like. He's lying. Those photos are fake," but I wasn't done. Next image. Screenshots of text messages between Sarah and David. Months worth of them, the dates and times clearly visible. "I can't wait to be a real family with you and our baby. Just a little longer until he's out of the picture. He believes everything I tell him. It's almost too easy." The room erupted. Sarah's mother let out a small cry. Her father stood up, his face red. Friends were backing away, looking at Sarah like they had never seen her before. "Stop this." Sarah screamed at me. "Turn it off." I met her eyes across the room. My voice was calm, cold. "Why would I stop? I thought everyone should know the truth." Next image. The wire transfer receipt. $15,000 to a genetics clinic for paternity testing. "Oh my God," Kate whispered. Then came the audio. I had pulled the best clip, the most damning one. Sarah's voice filled the room, crisp and clear from her doctor's appointment that I had recorded using her smartwatch's microphone. "Just to confirm, my husband doesn't need to know about the actual conception date, does he? About when it really happened." A pause, the doctor's confused voice. "I'm sorry. I'm not sure I understand, Sarah," laughing nervously. "He assumes it was after we got back from our trip. But some things are better left undiscovered, right?" The same phrase, the exact same phrase her friends had been giggling about earlier. It crashed over the room like a wave. Lisa's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. No one moved to clean it up. "You all knew," I said, looking at Emma, Kate, and Lisa. "That's what you were joking about." Emma's face went white. "We didn't know everything. We just thought she was having some fun. We didn't know about the baby." "Shut up," Sarah shrieked at them. "All of you just shut up." But the damage was done. The entire room had turned against her. People were gathering their things, making excuses, trying to leave this nightmare. That's when I spotted him. David Chen stood near the back of the room, trying to edge toward the front door. He must have come to the party at Sarah's invitation, trying to play it casual. Just another coworker stopping by to celebrate. Now he looked like a trapped animal. "Going somewhere, David," I called out. Every head in the room swiveled toward him. He froze, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. "David, don't say anything, please." But David wasn't like Sarah. He wasn't calculating or calm under pressure. He was panicking. And panic makes people stupid. I didn't know. The words burst out of him like he had been holding them in for months. "I swear to God, I didn't know you two were still together." Sarah's face twisted in horror. "You idiot. She told me you were separated." David continued, his voice rising. "She said you were just living together for Jake's sake, but that the marriage was over. She said you hadn't even touched her in months." The room went dead silent. "And the baby?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "What did she tell you about the baby, David?" He was crying now, actual tears streaming down his face. "She said it was mine, that we were going to be a family, that after the birth she was going to file for divorce and we could finally be together." Sarah made a sound like a wounded animal. "Stop talking," but David was too far gone. "I love her. I thought we had a future. She told me everything was arranged, that you would just sign the papers and it would all be clean." I pulled the final document from my jacket pocket. I had been carrying it all day, waiting for this moment. The paternity test results, the real ones, not the fake report I had had sent David weeks ago to make him panic, but the actual lab results I had obtained through carefully collected DNA samples. I unfolded it slowly, letting the anticipation build. "You want to know whose baby it is, David?" I asked. He stared at me, hope and terror fighting for control of his face. I looked down at the paper at the numbers that had confirmed my worst suspicions. Then I looked up at Sarah. Her entire body was shaking. She knew what was coming. "According to this paternity test," I said clearly, making sure everyone could hear, "there is a 99.9% probability that this child is not mine." Gasps. Sarah's mother started sobbing. Jake, standing near the projector, looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. I let that sink in for a moment before I continued. The DNA markers matched David Chen's genetic profile with 99.8% certainty. David's legs gave out. He actually collapsed onto our couch, his face in his hands. "The baby is yours, David," I said. "Congratulations. You're going to be a father." Sarah was screaming now, but I couldn't make out the words. It was just noise, rage, and desperation, and the sound of a life imploding. People were fleeing. Sarah's family was gathering around her, some trying to comfort her, others yelling questions. David was still on the couch, mumbling something incoherent. Jake had disappeared, probably to his room. I stood in the center of the chaos I had created and felt nothing. Actually, that's not true. I felt satisfaction, cold, complete satisfaction, because this wasn't over, not even close. While everyone was distracted, while Sarah was melting down and David was having a crisis, and the guests were fleeing like rats from a sinking ship, my final surprise was already in motion. The email I had scheduled to send at exactly 4:30 that afternoon had just gone out. An anonymous message to Sarah's company's entire senior leadership team and human resources department. Attached were copies of everything: the messages, the photos, the timeline showing her affair with a subordinate employee, the falsified medical documents, the deception. Sarah's career, the one she had spent 15 years building, would be over by Monday morning, and David. Another email had gone to his ex-wife, the one he was in a bitter custody battle with over their 2 kids. She now had all the evidence she needed to prove he was an unfit parent. By the end of the month, he would lose custody completely. But I wasn't done. The social media accounts I had created under burner profiles were already spreading the story. Strategic posts on local community forums, carefully worded to avoid legal issues but damning enough to destroy reputations. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle would know. Their friends, their families, their colleagues. There would be no fresh start for Sarah and David. No quiet divorce and moving on. No happy ending, just scorched earth. I walked upstairs to check on Jake. I found him sitting on his bed, headphones on, staring at nothing. I knocked on the door frame. He looked up, pulled off the headphones. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "Is the baby really not yours?" I sat down next to him. "Yeah, buddy, it's true. So you and Mom are getting divorced?" "Yeah," he nodded slowly, processing. "And that guy David is the real father?" "Yes." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question I had been dreading. "Did you know before today? Have you known for a while?" I could have lied, but I didn't. "About 3 weeks." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to be sure, and I needed to handle it the right way." Jake looked at me. Really looked at me, and I saw something shift behind his eyes. Not judgment, exactly, more like understanding. My 16-year-old son suddenly seemed much older. "Is Mom going to be okay?" he asked. "Eventually," I said, "but it's going to be hard for her for a while." "Good," Jake said flatly. "She deserves it." I pulled him into a hug. We sat there for a while, father and son. While downstairs, the party continued to implode. By the time I went back downstairs, most of the guests had left. Sarah's parents were still there, along with Emma and Kate. Lisa had wisely made herself scarce. David was gone, probably running home to start damage control with his ex-wife. Sarah sat on the couch, mascara streaked down her face, that expensive maternity dress wrinkled and stained with spilled champagne from the chaos. She looked up when I entered, and for just a moment I saw real fear in her eyes. "We need to talk," she said, her voice from crying. "No," I replied calmly. "We really don't. Please, I can explain. It's not what you think." I almost laughed. "It's exactly what I think, Sarah. You've been having an affair with David for at least 8 months. You got pregnant with his child. You planned to pass it off as mine, and you were going to wait until after the birth to leave me, probably to maximize child support or alimony or whatever your lawyer told you." She flinched at every word. "The only thing I don't know," I continued, "is how long this has been going on. How many times before David? How many other lies?" "There was no one before David," she whispered. "I swear I don't believe you, and it doesn't matter anyway." Her mother spoke up, her voice shaking. "What are you going to do?" I looked at her. "I've already done it. Divorce papers will be filed Monday morning. Sarah has 48 hours to move out of this house. After that, the locks get changed." "You can't just kick me out," Sarah shouted, finding some of her old fire. "I have rights." "You have the right right to leave voluntarily or be removed forcibly. Your choice. But either way, you're leaving and you can take that watch with you. The one David gave you, the one you claimed was from your friends. She looked down at her wrist like she had forgotten it was there. Everything you've built, I said quietly. Your career, your reputation, your friendships, your family's respect, all of it is gone now. I made sure of that. So I'd suggest you take the next 48 hours to figure out your next move. Because this life, it's over. I turned and walked away, leaving her crying on the couch, surrounded by the wreckage of her own choices. That night, after everyone had finally left, after Sarah had locked herself in the guest room, after Jake had gone to bed, I sat alone in my home office and opened my laptop. The downloads were already pouring in. Screenshots from social media showing Sarah's story spreading. Automated alerts from the monitoring software showing David's frantic texts to Sarah begging her to call him asking what they should do. There was an email from Sarah's boss sent to HR with Sarah copied requesting an immediate meeting Monday morning to discuss serious allegations of workplace misconduct. Another email from David's ex-wife's lawyer formally notifying him of an emergency custody hearing. Everything was falling apart exactly as I had planned. I should have felt triumphant, victorious, vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired, because the truth is, revenge doesn't heal anything. It doesn't erase the betrayal or restore the trust or fix what's broken. It just destroys. And in destroying her, I had to destroy parts of myself too. The parts that believed in love and partnership and building a life with someone. But some secrets really are better left undiscovered. Sarah just learned that the hard way. And tomorrow, when the full consequences of her choices came crashing down, when she lost her job and her reputation and her comfortable life, when David lost his children and Sarah realized she was facing single motherhood with a man who couldn't even protect himself, let alone a family, they would both understand. You can't build a future on lies. Eventually, the truth catches up. If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.